think meet that criteria that you've signed up.
The 2 months left in redemption?
Yeah.
The one's already fallen off, so time's going by. Probably 3 or 4 of them are like that.
So 3 or 4 are in that situation. So to answer your question, when I looked at 20 properties, I had about 5 deals come together out of that. But I was actually in the car looking at properties where I knew where my exit was going and major action around it, and that's a high percentage. So I think about 1 out of 20, so if you're looking at like, that's probably what the national average is on putting deals together. Yeah. So it then becomes a numbers game.
Right, so you can easily calculate how much money you're going to spend on your leads, take that 5%, and then, calculate it.
Absolutely, you could do that, yeah.
Yeah, how many properties I know you're doing a lot of things. How many properties do you look at a week?
Right now, I'm looking at none.
Okay, right.
But I have a full-time, very experienced partner
Okay.
that is looking at probably, it varies, 30 to 40. Now, Ron, how many are you looking at?
Probably like 2 or 3 days. Okay.
2 or 3 a day. And how many signs do you have out? 300 signs out. So, it is all a numbers game, okay? So I don't know if that, yeah.
You know, you do a couple and you think, oh wow, I've done some work.
Yeah, but you got to get that she's got her sign
Right.
that she's done, but she's got it in a great location, okay?
Right.
So, what I want to really cover is like when we get into the leads is when you're out looking at them, like what is the real exit on this, and is there money to be made here or not money to be made? But like to give you an example, my partner this week looked at one property that is a brick duplex with the people still living in it, 3 up, 3 down, and they want $7,000 for the property. So is there anything to think about on something like that? We're in the wholesale business. Do you think we're going to wholesale that one? I'm not. We will purchase that and then wholesale it. Okay, let me put it this way. We will lock that one up fast. That's one that's a good deal, and that's what you're really looking for. It's a numbers game. Now, a lot of the other stuff that we look at, we end up listing. And some of that stuff is you think, my goodness, nobody would buy that, but they actually do buy it because it's a neighbor down the street or it's an investor that already owns properties on the street. When the second you try to figure out whether something's a good deal or a bad deal, you'll get clobbered. When you want to figure out if it's a good deal or bad deal is when you're actually buying it, okay? And everything else is still a deal. And I'll give you a criteria when it's not a deal to me. When there's 3 months or 2 months left in the redemption period, and the things at max value, I really don't have a lot of interest in that. It's like I'm looking at all the areas where I can spend my time. That's not going to be time well spent. And my chances of getting a short sale and everything else become, and some of that's a learning curve. You know, like I guarantee you that Denise can go in and do an advertising agreement pretty quick now, right?
Yes.
So, and she knows what it takes to have all of her paperwork put together and do all that ahead of time. And it doesn't take, she also knows she can do it over a fax machine, doesn't have to go to the house. So, I mean, those are all things that once it's just, you know, you start working with it, you can start to see stuff. So once you've got your phone ringing, so like what do you do then, right? That's the phone's ringing, so let's walk through that scenario. The very first thing you want to do is get you want to have some type of intake sheet, a lead sheet, a cash call lead sheet. And Karen, there's lead sheets back there that need to get handed out, and I don't know. So, but this is a very simplistic lead sheet, and what we've got in our system is we actually are computerized, so you can enter all the information on an intake lead sheet, And it's like the data's saved, and then you can follow it all the way through on the property. Then you're going to find out certain information like the property address, and then you want to just start asking questions. You want to, find out where the major crossroads are, and you want to really get their story, okay? And you don't want to say, why are you selling? Because you're putting them on the defense, right? You want to find out what their reason for selling is. So, and then you want to the number one way to make money in this business is not to talk, but to listen. So you just want to be a really good listener with people and find out what is it why they want to really sell this property. So that was why I was having trouble with your sister's house. Was I was trying to determine, what I got is that you really want to get it, but I don't know that she really wants to sell it. Okay. Well, your mother's house. I'm sorry, but I'm just it's. So you want to really spend the time to find out as much information and listen on the phone. So now so you want to get basic stuff like number of bedrooms, basement, garage, that kind of stuff. The square feet, they're not going to know the square feet. People don't know what square feet are. But when they give you an address in a neighborhood, you've got a pretty good idea what the houses are. Now, how we work our leads is I have a partnership. I have signs up now. In fact, I held some of them up. I've got like 3 or 4 different partnerships, but one of the partnerships is I have a full-time partner that is raising 2 children at home. And she's excellent at taking the calls and researching all the information. I have another partner that goes out and drives by the property and shoots a picture. So she finds out all the information, the story, and has this information all filled out from the people, like what their motivation is, what they want for the property, the condition of the property, and all that stuff. And then he rides out and looks. So the second he gets to the property, if it's a brick 4-bedroom house, and I don't really care where in the city of Detroit, let's just use that as an example, brick 4-bedroom, and they want $20,000 for the house, and he gets there, and from just looking at the street, it looks like there's light repairs. And I know this sounds strange, but if you've done this long enough, you can almost look at a house from the street and know pretty much the condition of the house. And it sounds goofy, but after you do it long enough, you almost get those kinds of instincts around it. Now, he's going by to just look at it, and then he's going to say, if the neighborhood's good, and she's asking all the questions too. Describe your neighborhood. Is there board ups? Does your house need repairs? If they say the house needs repairs, she's going to say, what kind of repairs? Well, the roof leaks a little. So does it leak? And then from that, you start to get a flavor of what the condition of the property is and what the deferred maintenance are and stuff like that. But when he looks at the street and it's got a good roof and it looks solid, and they want $20,000, it's a brick, that's a home run deal for him. That's a great wholesale deal. We're going to grab that and put that deal together very quickly. Because he's probably going to comp on a brick like that, it's going to comp anywhere from 65 up to 100, So it's a numbers game. So you get the information sheet. Now, once he's gone by and looked, and she takes the calls, and like the brick duplex, when the guy said he's got a brick duplex they're living in, they said they want $7,000. The second she got that is, Roy, you better get up off your chair and get in the car and drive out there and get this deal tied up. You cannot take property in slow motion. You cannot take property in slow motion. So when you see a good deal, you've got to really react. You need to get it under contract. So the very first thing you're going to do is put a purchase agreement together and get it tied up. I'm going to hand out, first I want to just set it up, then I'm going to hand you out a buyer favorable purchase agreement. And in our buyer favorable purchase agreement, when we make an offer on a house, first of all, if I tie a house up with a purchase agreement, I pretty much know in my heart that I'm going to move that property. If I'm concerned about moving it, then I'm going to tell the people I'm not sure. I am going to tell the people that I am not the buyer of the property. I'm going to tell people I got a 4,000 investors, and I work with them, and they're going to come in and buy it. Now, you got to remember, you're looking for a motivated seller. When you're a professional and you come in and you make your presentation right, there's no issues around that. The biggest enemy in doing this business is yourself. I'm serious. It's majorly yourself, because you have an internal conversation going about how you would do business. My conversation is I would never sell a house without a deposit. I would never sell a house for this amount of money. I would never, okay, it's your conversation. It's not the person that's the don't wanter. They don't have that conversation. But the first thing is a lead sheet, and some of the things she's going to ask them, she's going to find out if it's a probated estate. She's going to find out how they got the house, what the story was, so that she knows that if they said that I got this out of a divorce, then what is one of the documents that the people need to bring to you when she sends Roy out to take the divorce decree? And she's going to tell them to bring all their paperwork that when they bought the house, or she's going to have them fax it to her, or she's going to have them mail it to her. She's going to try to set them up. So, well, the one key thing when you're going to look at a property is you've got to have like all your tools put together, because we only want to go to the property one time. So, okay, so with the lead sheet, after you've gone through and gotten their story in that, then Roy's gone by and looked at it, okay, and we know there's a deal, then we're going to lock it up under a purchase agreement. And if we're not sure about that purchase agreement, then it might be an advertising agreement. And maybe the house needs to be listed, then it would be a listing agreement. So we're going to, or maybe the house should be optioned. You know, Greg was talking about how he would put options on houses. Maybe we've got somebody that it's pre-foreclosure, they're a don't want her, they want to walk away from the house, they're willing to do a deed off on that house. So we would take a deed to the property, and then he's going to put an ad in the paper and find a tenant that'll lease that house and catch up the payments that they're behind. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios. That's part of the analyzing thing. That's what the preferred investor group's all about. But that's, you want to, first you got to take all the information, then send somebody out. So advertising agreements, they're popping up all over the country. People that create websites, and then they have people that they list the properties, homes for sale. Multi-list services, the Real Estate Board of Realtors are bringing suits against those people. They're called aggregators, okay? And they're losing all the suits. The people are prevailing. So, but what we did to make sure is we actually are doing them as a real estate company, and we're giving the people the choice whether to list the house or not list the house inside our advertising agreement. And we've cleared it through the state that we can pay a fee on that as an advertising agreement and not have a problem, okay? So, but you as an investor, what you might want to be doing, because you don't have that, or if you don't want to use that system, what you might want to do is you might want to put it under contract or option the house. If I don't have an exit for a house, and you got to remember, if it's a don't want her, you can option the house. Use a buyer favorable option agreement to tie the property up for $1. And I tell the people what I'm going to do. Look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go list the house with a realtor. I'm going to put a sign in front of it. I'm going to send it out to 4,000 investors. I'm going to put it on this website. I can get you, if you like, we'll put your house on radio on Preston Smith's the Minister of Finance show, and it'll go out to all those viewers. You're telling them what you're doing for yourself, but you're really doing it for them too, because you're getting their house sold. So you can option a house. If you don't know, that's how you would handle that. So then once you have an option, you have the right to control it and do an advertising agreement, list it, do whatever you want. In our buyer favorable option agreement, we have a clause in there that says that we're buying this house for a profit and we're going to be relisting it for sale in the multi-list and that. The trick is you want to make sure you want to deal with a don't want her, because they're ready to, and I'm not lying to the people. You do not need to bullshit people. And I don't have an answer to the sell. I tell them that. I tell them I don't have the answer, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm willing to take my time and energy and work on your property. I'm willing to put my sign up that says for sale and I buy houses for cash. I'm willing to do that for you, you know, and for me. And they'll do it. And I don't know the answer to that. I had a house across the street from a church next to the church's parking lot So I just locked it up under an option agreement, put my sign on the front, and then I figured the church can call me if they want to buy that to expand their parking lot. So it's it's the lazy man's way to do business. So that's one way to view this business, is how can I achieve it the quickest and fastest way. But what I wanted you to get, the thing you're looking for is that $7,000 brick duplex. That's the nugget, okay? But you don't want to step over the other income opportunities along the way. So I don't know, did that answer the question? Okay. Okay. So now we got our form all filled out, and Roy's gone out and looked at the house, and it's time to go out and meet the people, right? So this is another thing about like doing this business, you need to have systems in place. So like we've put like a systemized approach to this, and how we did this was we put a bunch of engineers in the room, and then we took all these marketing people, and then they listened to the people that are the salespeople talk, and they created a cash call system. So we have created as like first the lead, all the stuff you gather, this information you need to know, like if they're a divorce decree, all the forms you want to gather ahead of time. And then what you want to do is you go to the house. So when you go to the house, typically if Roy's going, he's printed up the purchase agreement ahead of time. We don't know what price we're going to buy it for, but it's all filled out. And we're going to go in with that purchase agreement, and we've got all of our disclosure forms. And when you're a realtor, you have to disclose that you're a realtor. So everything's laid out in chronological order. So we've got the realtor disclosure sheet. But the first thing we do, we get the house, we have an inspection sheet. So now you're going to walk through that house with the owner, and now you don't know how to rehab the house, right? I'm just saying, some of you don't have the foggiest clue. Doesn't matter. You're going to walk and look at the roof and say it looks like it needs a new roof, and you're starting to write down roof, $6,000 to $20,000. You're looking at all the stuff that needs a new kitchen. So you're writing all these prices down. You're not saying anything. They're with you. Then you're going to sit down at the kitchen table, and you're going to say, how much money do you want to sell your house for? Well, they've maybe rethought their position. And at that point, you're going to make your offer, or they're going to tell you what it is. But anything can, like if somebody doesn't tell me what they want for the house, I'm going to tell them I want to give you $2,500, or a very low number. Now that will get a response, and they'll tell you where they really are at. And when I first started doing this business, it was like I was talking to myself saying if I got this house for $15,000, that would be a really good deal, and I know that they wouldn't do that. So I'm having this internal conversation. You got to throw that one out the window, and don't try thinking for somebody, and you got to start at the low number. And then they'll tell you where they're really at. And then a lot of times people are getting what I call an auction close. You're there, and they're want to get your purchase agreement so they can wait for the next guy to show up with an offer. So you're going to tell them, look, I'm working for this investor, my investor. I'm limited on the number of properties I'm going to buy. I've got 2 in mind. Your house meets that criteria. Are you prepared to really sign everything today if I make an offer? You know, and you want to make sure. That's another thing on the pre-inspection sheet. You want to find out if they're married. If they're married, they got to have their wife there. If it's a partnership, all the partners need to be there. You don't want to go meet one person because you want to finalize the stuff right on the spot. That's a legal binding deal. So you want to like say, well, I'm limited on my funds. I was going to buy 2. This is you. If it's me, I'm saying I'm buying it for an investor, and they're limited on their funds, and that I under order to get 2. And I pretty much, when we're out there, we know whether we got a major home run or not, and that's when we're going to tie it up under a PA. Now, once you get into this business and you establish relationships with people, I can then do what I call a buyer referral agreement. So now I put in front of that same house for $7,000, and I have Kathleen under a contract that says she's going to pay me $5,000. Well, in this case, the house, I can buy it for $7,000, so I'm going to call Kathleen up and say, Kathleen, I'm going to assign this PA to you, but you need to go tie it up, but I want $20,000. So I could tell Kathleen I want $20,000, but I've done business with her in the past, so she signs a buyer referral agreement, right? I know that she's using a buyer favorable purchase agreement allows a claim of interest to be filed against the house, because her and I've had a relationship. I know she knows what she's doing. I also know that in my buyer referral agreement allows me to file a claim of interest against the house, which I'm going to do the second she's tied it up. So now my claim's there for my $20,000. I've removed myself from all that drama. I don't have to go tie the house up. I don't have to do anything. As a wholesaler, I just put together a wham, bam, great deal. Do you follow that conversation? Okay. So, so when Roy goes by the house and looks at it and listens to the story and everything, then we're deciding what the exit strategy is. Is this a house we want to sign a purchase agreement on? Is this a house we want to option? Is this a house we want to do an advertising agreement with? Is this a house we want to list? And yes, you can't list the house unless you're a realtor, but you can marry a realtor, or you can whatever, or you can become a realtor. And also maintain, if you're going to get in this business, it's to your advantage to become a realtor. If for no other reason than to call up a realtor and say, I have a great assignment, I would like to assign this purchase agreement over to you. Or I would like to assign this lead over to you for a 25% referral. Okay. So now we're at the house and we've gone all the way through the house. Now we get to the kitchen table. Now, if it's in an area where you don't feel comfortable, then you're going to meet them at a restaurant after you've gone through the house. Or if it's an area that you're incredibly uncomfortable in, you don't even go in the house. All we do is go up by and shoot the picture and send Kathleen out to meet them. So, do you follow what I mean? That's because that's how we do business. But I've designed it so I don't have to go do that. Okay. And if you're in certain areas where there is drug problems, or it's a war zone, or it's Vietnam, or whatever, then you're going to go early in the morning to shoot your pictures because it's quiet. Okay? So in all the time I've been doing this business, I've only had 2 episodes. I had once in Detroit where I had a young lady with her hood up on a car that when we were riding by to look at the house, she wanted us to help her start her car, you know, and there was 2 young guys standing by the side, and we drove through, and we got halfway up the block, and they slammed the hood down and took off. So it was like a setup. And then once I'd been rammed from the rear when I was alone, where they rammed me with their car, wanting me to get out, and I just kept on going. I've gone into houses that had vagrants in the houses, and they were incredibly friendly vagrants, and I went all the way through the house and took all my pictures, and I left. And when I got back in my car driving away, I started to shake because I realized what I'd done. But, you know, that was really stupid. So I really don't go in, and I've been in houses where, like, Roy and I were in a house one time and go, wow, the stove's on, wow, the lights are on, oh, wow, look, cell phone, and it works. So it's like, let's back out the front door. So I'm not going to put myself in those positions anymore. So back to, we're at the house, we've gone through the house with the people. When you're set to the restaurant, you want to hand the people the disclosure forms, the lead-based paint, and seller disclosure form, which is a requirement by law in the state of Michigan for them to fill out. Now, you're handing that to them because they don't know how to do them either, and you don't know how to fill your PA out because you're brand new at this. So that allows them to be looking at those forms while you're filling your PA out and playing with those. If you prepared your forms up ahead of time, all you really need to do is get the number, you sign that, get them signed. And we're usually, when Roy goes to tie up a house, we're in and out in 20 minutes. Now the reason for that is because what you're doing is you start thinking for yourself, I would never sell anything unless I read every document and every piece of information. I want the seller to see 2 pieces. I want them to see that they have like a 3 or 4 or 10-day rescission period. I want them to see on that purchase agreement that they can take this purchase agreement to an attorney or a realtor or their best friend, and if they choose to cancel the deal, they can cancel it. And I make it very clear because when you start resisting stuff is when you get in trouble. So when I say, I want you to do this, there's not an issue. I also tell them that my buyer's buying this on a mortgage. So if I've got competition to this deal, like I'm telling them that my buyer's going to go get a hard money lender because he needs money to fix the house up. Don't forget we're looking at ugly houses. So they understand that it requires a private lender to come in to do the deal. So now it's on a mortgage. So all I have to do is get denied for the mortgage. I don't need an escape clause. All I need to do is go to IRA and say, IRA, will you loan me this money? I need $4,000, I need $20,000 in rehab, and I'm only willing to pay 7% interest. That's the way I wrote my PA. And IRS says denied. So now the deal's dead. Okay? So I'm going to like hit some highlights on purchase agreements that are like, is there a purchase agreement back there? Can I get one? Okay, so is everybody with me? You're at the house, so you want to lock them up on a PA. So you want to use a buyer favorable purchase agreement. Our buyer favorable purchase agreement looks like a standard purchase agreement.
They have 3 days to rescission clause in there?
You get to say how that's going to be. So there's no way that we can get through all this, so I'm going to just hit you highlights on the purchase agreement that are key things that you want to have in your purchase agreement. So key things in my purchase agreement is on the possession it says that, and I'm not going to read the clause to you, it says that I'm buying your property, and if it's vacant, I've got the right, I need a set of keys to it, and I've got the right to show this house for the point of finding a tenant or for the point of resale if I want, okay? So I gain access to the property. When I'm at the house, on the brokerage fees, I'm going to put 0 fees there because they're not going to pay any commissions. And if I have a broker that I have to pay, like say my broker may have done a good job of negotiating with my broker, I'm only going to give him $100 on the buy, then I put down a $100 brokerage fee paid by the purchaser or whatever. Key points on this is in paragraph number 8 on tax prorations. There are no tax prorations. In Wayne, Oakland, Macomb County, taxes are prepaid. So if they have prepaid taxes on the property, I'm keeping those prepaid taxes. Now, when Tony does this deal with the people and she's negotiated a price ahead, like the $7,000, like Roy's gone by and we know that's a good deal, she sometimes will actually review the entire closing package with the people and give them what's called a net sheet. And we have a net sheet with us that says, look, Mr. Seller, we're giving you $7,000, but you have a water bill of $500. That's going to be paid. You owe the title company $50. And this is really what you're going to get is $5,460. So a lot of people will say, yeah, I'm giving you $7,000, but that's not what they're getting. The purchase agreement's written for closing costs and other costs. So back to being really straight with people, you need to tell them what their net number is going to be, or a guesstimate on it. On our paragraph number 10, it says the closing would be held on or before, and usually if we're doing a loan, we could say that we're going to close it within 60 days or 45 days, or it could be 90 days. But then he says an additional period of 60 days, and sometimes we put 90 days in there, shall be allowed for closing to accommodate delays in title work, corrections of title defects, and I just go on to be able to buy myself an additional 90 days if I need it. So I'll point that out to them, because I'll tell them sometimes we'll get one buyer that doesn't go through, we'll have to put another buyer in place.
You put a date in that space?
We do.
Closing shall be held on or before?
We do.
Okay.
And one thing, at a later date, if you want, we do a complete one-day training just on purchase agreements. So, that's... And then on paragraph number 19, claim of interest. It's agreed and understood by all parties that the buyer may, at his or her sole option, file a registered claim of interest or a memorandum of purchase agreement with the Register of Deeds for the county with which the subject property is located. In the state of Michigan, you cannot file a claim of interest against somebody's property unless you have a contract. The purchase agreement is a contract that allows you to file a claim of interest. I can now go out and sell my property on my website, and I don't have to worry about another investor going around me to do a deal. Do you follow that? Because I've clouded the title. I've gummed up the title on this property. And when I do my advertising agreements, it allows me to file a claim of interest against the property. It's in my advertising agreement. If I'm sending out a buyer to buy the property, I'm making sure that they're using a buyer favorable purchase agreement so that they have the right to file a claim of interest in my buyer favorable, buyer representation agreement I've signed with them allows me to file a claim of interest. You can't do business in the state of Michigan or without being able to do this because because there's a few unscrupulous investors that will go around you. Okay?
What if you find out that the person sold the property already, and you don't find out till a month later? And you still file claim of interest even though it's a done deal?
No, that'll do you no good.
An unscrupulous seller.
So you have to like keep an eye on your properties, stay on top of them. To make
Yeah.
sure he sells it off.
Well, you're going to go record the claim of interest. Now, we're going to clout the title. Now, could they go sell it to somebody else? Could the title company not pick that up? Yes. Does that happen? Yes. Is there a shrinkage in this business? Yes. Do people get over on you? Yes. You know, do you cease doing business with them? Do you make the world aware of who they are? So we disclose. So those are like the key things that we do inside this. I also have a lender's restriction clause in there. That I did put that in there to avoid mortgage fraud situations, because if I'm assigning this purchase agreement to an investor, that clause says that the investor is going to do everything according to the law. And it also says that both parties are going to disclose, if they're getting money back for rehab and that they're going to disclose that to the lender. So there's so much of that going on, we can't afford to. So I've put all the protection. So like this purchase agreement, if you look at the bottom of it, it says it was revised on 2/1/05. And it says that it's a BF form, which means buyer favorable. So, you know, so this is what we use, and a lot of time and energy's gone into it, and it works.
So you have a seller favorable?
Our seller favorable is basically like an MLS form. It's not really seller favorable, it's just fair. I don't know. And the buyer favorable is fair too, because don't forget, we're telling the people exactly what they're going to net out of the property, okay? So that's the purchase agreement we're going to do. So when you go to the house, there's certain tools you need to have in this business. You need to own a digital camera, because everything's being done over the internet. And so when Roy goes out, he's got his digital camera. And you can buy a digital camera off eBay now, a used one, an older one. This one's probably, I don't know how many pictures this camera's taken, a jillion, and it still works good. So we've got like 2 or 3 cameras we use. I got a toolkit I carry in the trunk of my car. So once you get into this business, there's certain things you need to have. You need a nice steel flashlight for that, and you also need it for this, okay? So that's, you know, it just has it's a better feel when you're going through an abandoned house or something, even if you're with somebody. And I don't go through houses anymore. Like now how I look at them is through a windshield. And then I'm going to find the investor to go find out how it is inside, okay? I don't want to do that. So the answer earlier is if you're in a tougher area that you don't feel comfortable in, don't do it. I will not go into tough neighborhoods unless I'm with another person. So you don't want to put yourself in harm's way in this business. So, or I'll send the other person down to shoot the pictures, or you make sure whoever you're with runs slower than you, you know. So those are all keys. I got a screw gun because you're going to go see board up houses and you need to be able to get inside them. Then you're going to need more screws to screw them up, okay? So you're going to need to have a lockbox with you, because when you go to the house, you're going to want to get keys, right, from the people and put them in the lockbox so that you can send your investors out to look at it, and you want to take a set of keys with you. If the house is a blowout house, I've got eye bolts, so I'm going to put 2 of these in. Then I'm going to have it at the door jamb where the 2 meet, and then I'm going to put my padlock on it. The cost, this one was an expensive one, like $3 or $4. You can actually even buy them at the dollar store for $1. So then you're going to put your padlock on it, and then if somebody's in the house, or if somebody is, another broker's there, and they've got the same kind of deal with a combination lock, or somebody's changed something, but I need to get in and see the house, I'm going to call them, and I have bolt cutters in my trunk. I'm going to cut the other padlock off, put mine on, call them, and give them the new combination. I'm not going to drive to a house and not get inside to see it. And then you're going to have hammer, nails, right? And then you can actually twist a knob right off on doors, and there's a lot, I've got some other stuff where you slide in to loosen up the locks, so you've got all your tools, because when you're there, you want to get into the house, okay?
You ever get stopped by the police, they're not sure you're a realtor or a second story guy?
Exactly, yeah. But I want to get into the house, you know, I'm not out there not to get into it. I'm not out there to violate the law either, so. So those are the tools you need to have in this business. And it's not a lot of tools, right? So does anybody ever go out and look at a lot of houses? I know, so do you have tools? Okay. Has there been times you've gone there and couldn't get in and stuff, so? Yeah. Yeah. I get incredibly upset if I can't get into a house, and I've gotten the okay to get into it.
I mean, I've actually had a situation where I've gone to a house like 3 or 4 times and couldn't get in.
Yeah.
That's just really fun.
So that's what, so when you've got a deep, go ahead.
Is the PA the form that gives you the right to access the house? I mean, how do you?
Well, if I was working with an REO agent, a real estate agent, working for the lender, and they sent me to a house, and somebody's already changed his combination lock, so he can't get back in. See, investors go there, it's like it's a VA house, so let me just break the key off in the lock so I can make sure my bid's the only one that gets it. You know, so that's how other investors are thinking, so sometimes they've gummed up the works for you because they don't want you to get in the house. So, oh, let me use my bolt cutters, you know, so.
Right, but how do you prove that you have?
I call the realtor up and let them know I'm putting a new combination lock on there. Or I talk to the owner, or I tell the owner, you know, do you know your house is open? Somebody's kicked the door in, so I'll put a couple eye bolts and a combination lock on there for you. So it's really doing them a service.
There was a house we couldn't get into because the rain caused the wood of the buildings to fall up and it wouldn't open. I called the building, and I said, yeah, bust the window.
Right. So then you've got to have all your forms with you when you go out there. That's the other tools. So this is our advertising agreement. I'm not even going to attempt to get into it, but it looks like a purchase agreement, doesn't it? It's got a lot of clauses in there, so it's complicated. Now, if I'm dealing with somebody and I'm there and I'm telling them, look, you owe me no money if you sell the property, but if I send somebody by, you owe me money. Sometimes I just write that on the back of it and they're happy with that and we both initial it and then we sign the agreement. So in our purchase agreement, as long as you're showing them the part about the attorney and telling them they've got some time in that, they're not going to resist it and you can get your agreement signed and get on the road.
What's the fair fee for the advertising?
I grab it out of the air. If I'm dealing with an investor, a frugal person, then I may go as low as $1,500. I may go try for $2,400. I may try for $5,000. I have advertising agreements for $10,000. So it's whatever I feel comfortable with. They want to get their $7,000 for that duplex, so they probably wouldn't have a problem with you going up to $5,000 for an advertising agreement. If they do, then you reduce it, because I've got my buyer signed under a buyer agreement that he's going to pay me anyway, so I could collect from both parties. So what are your advertising agreements at, Denise?
Most of them are about 3,000 to 4,000.
3,000 to 4,000. What are yours at?
Around $4,000.
$4,000. Anybody else doing advertising agreements in the room? Okay.
You need to be a licensed agent for an advertising agreement?
Ours are through a real estate company, but you could do that in conjunction with us, you know, like if you wanted to go out on our website, but we would want to sign the agreement. But you could have them sign and then send a copy back. Yep. An advertisement agreement is just something we created. We just made it up. And then I went and met with the owner of Middleton Real Estate School and said, here's what we made up. Am I in trouble? And then she made changes to it, and then we sent it to the state to make sure we're not having a problem. And so it's just another form. It's like we're like our own little MLS, multi-list service, and people are signing advertising agreements. They're not commission, they're flat amounts. That's not to say if you were looking at a $100,000 property and you thought, oh, 6%, $6,000, yes, my flat advertising agreement is $6,000. I'm not sure that people would think that way or not, but they're all flat dollar amounts for advertising. So, and then we put them out on the website, and somebody comes in and wants to buy it, then I can send that person over. You know, if they negotiate, they're advertising their house for $20,000, but that person negotiates a buy price at $10,000, the seller owes me my $3,000 advertising fee, and I have a claim of interest filed against the property. If the buyer comes up with their own buyer and it's not ours, then I'm going to release my claim of interest. But I'm going to find out who the buyer is to make sure it isn't somebody we sent out. So
Record it right away?
we record the claim of interest right away. And we take down an extra copy and get a timestamped copy so that if we need to send it to a title company or send it to somebody to let them know, we can.
So where do you file a claim of interest?
At the Register of Deeds in that county.
Where do you get it timestamped?
At the Register of Deeds. If you bring an extra copy, they'll timestamp it for you. For the sake of covering everything we need to cover in this seminar, I'm just going to I won't be able to answer all the questions, but I'll stay after and answer as many questions as possible, okay? So we've got, in our toolkit, we've got a regular listing agreement as a realtor with all the stuff we need. We've got the claim of interest, but that's not with us. You can record your claim of interest later because you've got the right by contract. We've got our advertising agreements. Sometimes if you're meeting with somebody that doesn't want you to disclose anything, they want to meet with you, they might sign something. If you bring them a buyer, they don't want it on your website, we might sign a confidentiality non-disclosure agreement. We might sign a one-party seller listing with them where we can bring them people, but they don't want it on the website. So we got forms for whatever meets the circumstances, okay? If they want to do a flat listing, we'll do a flat listing for $750 or $900. That means we're going to put it in the MLS, and it'll go in there at 3%, and they prepaid us $750, and we send all the other agents to them to talk directly to them. Whatever meets their needs, I'm willing to do. A deed-off packet is one where we have prepared up where they sign a quitclaim deed, they sign a purchase agreement with a contract for $1, they've deeded that property over to us. Then we've created a hardship. This is typically for a pre-foreclosure. They've signed a hardship letter. It's a whole list. They've signed a mortgage, where you send in the request for the mortgage payoff. They've signed blank ones of those so you can send it in and get the payoff. They've signed a quitclaim deed and a warranty deed because it could be that they're dragging some taxes, but you could get the house leased out. So you need to put yourself in the chain of title. We do not put ourselves in the chain of title at the time we do that, but we do file our claim of interest because we don't know that we can actually get the deal done or not. So we're just real straight with them. And so what we have done is we've gained 100% control of the property, and they can get in their car and drive out of state. We have them sign a power of attorney. And why would we have them limited to the property only? They sign that power of attorney because if they're gone and they had an escrow account and an insurance check comes back, how are you going to cash the check? If you bought the house in your individual name, after the closing, you could deed the property from your name into a limited liability company. Now, you have violated your mortgage. You've not violated the law, but you broke the contract with the mortgage company by deeding that property into your name.
Deeding it off to the LLC.
Deeding it to the LLC, I'm sorry. So you bought it in your name because you can't get financing. If a property's a nice, clean property, it has to be purchased in your name. Now, if you've got all the proper insurance and everything, you're still covered. But if you, for the sake of protection, you want to deed it into a limited liability company, you can do that. Now, typically, there's never ever a problem. If you call the mortgage company up and say, I just deeded this into my limited liability company, you're going to have a problem. If you don't, you're not going to typically have a problem. Certain lenders that would let you, there's hard money lenders that will let you close in a limited liability company and they'll have a personal guarantee with them. There are people that would do that, but as a typical general rule inside the industry, you have to buy the house in your name. Okay, you can't deed the mortgage into your LLC. The mortgage is held by the bank. You can only deed the title. When you take ownership of that property, you're in deed holder position and the bank has a mortgage against it, so you can deed your position into your limited liability company's name.
How would that be a violation?
The contract on your mortgage in section 17 says that you can't transfer the title of the property, you're in violation of the contract. Now, a ton of people do that. They don't check that. So now you've got the property in your limited liability company's name. Now you've also got a problem because you had insurance when you bought it in your name, so you have to add your limited liability company as an additional named insured on the insurance policy. When you get a mortgage, when you get a home improvement loan, they're additional named insured. So I'm saying as a general rule, and I've taught a lot of seminars, I've never had anybody come to a seminar. And one time I went to a seminar in Florida taught by a guy named Jack Miller, and there was 500 people in the room, and they were all like me, dealing with lots of properties. He asked how many people bought houses or taken over properties with due on sale clauses where people deeded it over to you. Most of the hands in the room went up. He said, how many have you been foreclosed on? None of them. Now that's because they're getting their payments, there's not an issue with it, and you've not violated the law, you have violated the mortgage contract. And when this business, if you're chasing somebody in a pre-foreclosure and they're deeding the property over, how much money did you pay out of your pocket? If for a buck, okay, if it's a don't want her in the right circumstances. So what I'm saying is it's all proportionate to what your risk is. Yes, they could call the mortgage due. Do they as a practical rule? Not yet. Could that all shift? Tomorrow it could shift. So I'm saying that's just a calculated risk. But then the question is, how much money have you risked doing that deal? So Sam Bernstein, when he looks it up, he's going to look up at whatever properties are in that limited liability company's name. So if he's got 3 properties in that limited liability company, they're going to go look those up, and they're looking for assets. And then when they look up the property, they're going to see that not only does he have that mortgage, but another limited liability company has a second mortgage against the property, and the thing's over-leveraged, so it doesn't look so good, right? And that's his other limited liability company's given that limited liability a mortgage, but he might have already been discharged, but he just never recorded his discharge. It's just that it looks, when you look at it, it has the appearance of a poison pill. Why do I want to see something that has no value, you know? Do you follow? I mean, you're not... There's other fish to skin, you know. He's going to go on down the road he's going to be looking for the individual person that owns the property. That is, he pulls it up and finds they're working for so-and-so. There's a hit, you know. You're not so attractive. And that's not to say that he still won't sue the limited liability company. And it's not to say that he wouldn't bring suit against you either, you know. Because you can pretty much sue anybody you want, you know. So... Okay, so where to get the money where to find money when you get a deal done? Finding money in this business is not an issue. So some of you have got it in your head, I got to have the money before I can do the deal. That is not so. That's never an issue. If you've got the deal bought right, it'll never be a problem finding the money. And that's what leverage is all about. That's what mortgages are all about. That's what assignments are all about. That's what, you know. And when you can't find the money is when you know you don't have a good deal. Like one time I had hard money lenders, they wouldn't fund the project. It was moving a house. Well, I ended up losing like $5,000. I had one hard money lender that did it. And he did it because we guaranteed him X amount of profit. And so we had to write checks out when we finally closed the house. We moved it from the Pontiac Airport over to a vacant lot in Waterford. It was a bad experience. So if a hard money lender is turning you down, that should be a good indication to you that you have not done a very good job of finding a good deal. So, and you just drop the potato right there and go on down the road. Okay. So how to take title of the property, limited liability company, or you can take it in your own name as long as you've got all the proper insurance and liability coverage and everything else. There's nothing wrong with that. So how are you going to insure a property? And I'm talking about a property that's a blowout. You know, so like, how do you protect yourself there? you're going to use a builder's risk policy if you're going to go in and build this property or bring it up. Zurich has builder risk policies. Anybody use Zurich in the room? Zurich will give you liability protection. It will give you protection if your tools are stolen, if materials get stolen, and you're not going to get that from anywhere else. And then you're going to get a basic fire policy. And if you can't get the fire policy through anybody else, you can get it through Michigan Basic. One of the better companies based upon public adjusters' acknowledgement is Farmers. It's a Farm Bureau, yeah, Farm Bureau. They are reasonable and they pay claims. You know, sometimes you're in safe hands, you're not, because they fight every claim that gets made to them. So, okay, so does everybody follow? So when you buy this house, you're going to get title insurance. You're not going to ever go buy a house that you don't close through a title company, unless it's a deed off, right? Then they're deeding the house to you. You're going to go tie it up right on the spot, and you're going to analyze it later. In all purchase agreements, you never, if you're an engineer, you've got to tie the house up and have your clause to analyze later. Don't start analyzing because you'll never get a deal. If your gut says it's a good deal, tie it up, analyze it later. Okay, so now we've got this house bought. Now, so now we want to rehab a house. So like this is like really exciting. Has anybody rehabbed a house? Okay, so yeah, you're doing one. Okay, you're doing one, okay. So at one point, you know, I told you I was rehabbing 8 of them a month. So I've had lots of stories to talk about contractors, okay? So the first thing you want to do when you're rehabbing a house is you want to get a guesstimate of what it's going to cost to repair the house. So there's like a sheet that you go through a house. Why don't we hand out the subcontract agreement and the form you'd go through. But the first thing you want to do is go through and make a list of everything you need to do to the house. And what I'm giving you is a checklist there. You can go room by room through the entire house and write down what doesn't work. So like when you hand that to the contractor, here's your spec sheet, okay? And then what you want to do in the state of Michigan, you want to sign a subcontract agreement with them. And then in the state of Michigan, you want to make sure they have workman's compensation insurance, right? Because if they go in and saw their finger off, you're in trouble, right? If you don't have workman's comp. Now, if they have workman's comp and they show you the policy, that means absolutely nothing. Because I can give you a jillion contractors that run around with workman's comp policies that have been canceled, okay, for non-payment. You have to have yourself added on as an additional named insured on the workman's comp policy. So if you're going to hire a contractor, you can call their general insurance agent and they'll add you as an additional named insured on the workman's comp policy. And you can also do it on their liability policy. So what I'm saying is once you get into this business, you're probably going to need to go get a workman's comp policy. Because if they aren't going to provide it, you need to provide it and then you need to deduct that out of their money. And it'll tell you if you're doing carpenter work, it's $30 per thousand or whatever. They'll give you what the number is you have to pay. If you hire somebody and they're a one-man band team, okay, one person, they can exclude themselves from workman's comp. You can talk to your workman's comp carrier. They'll give you a certificate that's an exclusion form that says that if they cut their finger off, they're responsible, okay? So they can exclude themselves, which means when workman's comp comes in and audits your policy, you're not going to have to pay for that. But you want to have the workman's comp policy because what if that one-man band you hired had 3 other people working for him? He's the representative, he's only got himself working, and their fingers get cut off. So that's why you need to have a minimum workman's comp policy.
How much savings you got?
Does anybody, I'm not rehabbing right now, does anybody know what a minimum workman's comp policy is? It's probably $1,200, $1,400, I don't know, I'm taking a guess.
So if they show you a policy, how can you check if it's still valid?
You want to have the carrier that they're with send you proof that you're added to their policy, that you're covered under their workman's comp policy. I'm coming to do work at your house. I am a plumber, or I'm gonna go on your roof and fix your roof. And I'm gonna tar up around the chimney or whatever, and I slip and fall off the roof, then there's a problem. So you say, I need to see that you've got workman's comp coverage. And I say, yeah, here's my policy. And you say, okay, and this is the agent. You call the agent and say, he's getting ready to do work for me. I need to be added as an additional insured for this job. I want to get a certificate from you saying I'm covered. Now, how do I know that? I know it the hard way, okay? You don't want to go down that road. So the first thing you want to do is you want to realize that you need to be, if you're going to hire contractors, you want to see their insurance coverage. And if they don't have it, then you may have to get it if you've got a really extraordinary deal and somebody that checks out. So subcontract agreement, you want to make sure you got the proper insurance. You want to make sure you sign a subcontract agreement. So, and I want to tell you that I would hire contractors that did outstanding work, and I got good prices out of them, and they went along and we did really good business, and then they lost their mind. Just like I did and bought the 80 properties, they disappear on me. The biggest mistake made in the contracting business is when you do your interview and you check somebody out, you not give them half down on the job, you not give them 1/3 down on the job, you go buy the materials for them, you make sure they get delivered to the site, and you then pay the guy when he's done work. When you're dealing with a new contractor, Robin Thompson has developed over a period of time a very great working relationship with a general contractor. You are not in her shoes, okay? She's somebody that really knows the business. Now, you can go interview and find great general contractors, but even when you start out with them, you've got to make sure they get a proven track record with you. And that's where everybody loses money. On Friday afternoon, I had somebody that I sell a lot of properties to disappear. I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. He came to my office, and I cut him off. I cut his emails off. I quit doing it because he wasn't responding to me, no communication. And he came in, and he said what he did was he gave the contractor half down, and the contractor left with the money. And so now he's upside down in the property, doesn't have the proper working capital to complete the job. So contractors will sink you so fast, and I did it to the tune of 80 properties. That's a really quick suicide. But if you want to, you've got to control them. So you need to, once you hire a contractor, have them do the work. You never, ever want to pay a contractor without inspecting the job. And they are experts at telling you after they built some confidence with you, they'll show up, they always want to get paid on Friday, it's immediate gratification, and you'll be real busy, and the day that you don't go inspect, you'll be in trouble. Let's walk through a house, okay? Like, so how a house should look once it's rehabbed. Now, there's two ways if you're buying a house for a rental property, you're not going to rehab it to the same standards that you would rehab a house that you're selling. So when you pull up in front of the house, and it's summertime now, you want the walks edged, you want the grass cut, you want to make sure that there's a very good storm door in the front, not a cheapie. You want to make sure that the house cosmetically is appealing. You want to make sure if it was in the front and it had old shrubs, that you pulled the old shrubs up and you've replaced it with new shrubs with a 4x4 landscape trim board with the, what do you call those things that you put, the mulch you put around it, so that it's got a nice look. If you're on the outside and the house had a driveway that was busting up, what I used to do is I would cap them with asphalt. And so that I had a complete, because I need an FHA cell if you've got a broken or cracked steps or something's raised. So I could do asphalt way cheaper than I could do concrete. So, but it has a nice cosmetic look to it. If it had an older asphalt driveway, then I would seal coat it. That's where you buy the tanks of tar, or whatever it's called, the asphalt adhesive, and you cover it. It's like painting a driveway. Then if the city allowed you to put 2 layers of shingles on the roof, then what I would do is I would go to the side of the roof and cut back 1.5 feet, and then I would re-shingle so it looked like one layer shingles. Now, I am not going to sell that house and tell the people that they're buying a roof with one layer of shingles. I'm going to disclose to them that there's 2 layers of shingles. But what does it do visually when you look at it? It's much more appealing and looks really good. Do you follow that? So, disclosure, 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 disclosure. I had a concrete driveway. I capped it with asphalt. You're going to disclose that on your seller's disclosure statement. You're going to tell them. But what they're doing is they're going to look at a house. They're looking visually. And then it's back to what Robin said. You know, all their senses are in order when they're going in. It needs to smell good. It needs to... So if the house needed new windows, you know, in this market, and if I was doing it today, where I would go get my windows is probably wall side, because I know I can go deal with a salesman there and get them down to about $200 to $250 an opening. That's all trimmed out with aluminum with a lifetime warranty that I can hand the new buyer. That's not to say that you need to do that. You might be able to go buy them at Home Depot and trim them out yourself, way cheaper. All I'm doing is when I'm going in to look at that house to get a rehab quote, if I've got worn out windows, I just count the number of openings I've got and go anywhere from $250 to $300 an opening, and I've got a rough idea what my rehab cost is. And your cosmetic stuff you're doing with a driveway, I used to cap a driveway for about $900. It's probably up to $1,200 or $1,400 to cap a driveway with asphalt. So you want to be able to, when you're looking at the house, doing what you're going to do to it, you need to figure out how you're going to do your repairs. So now we've got a nice looking yard, asphalt driveway, windows. If the house was framed, then I would side it. When I first started this business, I would only side the front. Then years later, I'd side the sides because I didn't, you know, I just paint the back to match the sides. But as time went on, I discovered it's best to side the whole house. And my siding contractors, I found them working for other good window or siding and window companies that would do it on the side, and I could get some great buys. But I would find their best crews. Vinyl. Vinyl. If you do aluminum, it won't last. I mean, they steal aluminum. In the city, they have problems with aluminum. Then there's they get these brick mites. I don't know what it does, but they eat all the bricks off your house. So let's talk about a house in a tougher area too. Once you've rehabbed the house, the security you can do is you can actually buy an alarm system and have it set up. The best thing to do is to go to the neighbors, give them $20, tell them that you want them to park their car in your driveway. Okay, you want to do the Home Alone routine where you put the timers on. Remember that movie, Home Alone, where it looked like there was a jillion people in the house? You put the timers on. You have a timer on talk radio that comes on and off. So you've got a radio in there real loud, and it's coming on at different times in different rooms. You've got the lights that are coming on and off, and you've got the neighbor with the car parked in the driveway and making sure they keep the yard cleaned up for you, and they're watching the house, and you've given them some money. Best alarm system you can get. Okay, and then you put a security door on the front, and you tell the people, whoever's buying that house, that when they buy the house, they have their choice of the security door or a storm door. And then you move the security door to the next job, or you leave it for them. The reason you got the security door is so that they're going to steal. If something gets stolen, it's going to be stolen something small. They're not going to. The guy that's stealing the furnaces and the hot water tanks is going to go down the street where they don't have the security door. So the other thing I want you to know, that the next door neighbors don't come steal your toilets. It's your contractors. Usually when you've got a theft problem on a job, it's your own contractors that are doing it. I used to run out of furnaces because I would put the furnace in and they would steal it. And it was, I'm pretty sure it was my furnace guy, because he had to get it out real quick to sell me the next furnace, which would be that furnace. So when you've got that kind of problem, you need to look internally first, because it's usually your own crews that are stealing from you. My rehabbers would find me more homes to buy. They would find me the buyers. I couldn't pay them a referral fee, but I could pay them a bonus on the job. So, you know, you can do that. You can bonus people for completing the job early. You can, you can do a lot of stuff. And you're right, once you found somebody good, What I'm saying is even when they're good, you need to still be cautious about how that relationship will continue to go. My experience over a long haul was even the good ones sometimes went astray, you know. So we're back to the house. I want to get through this. So now we've got the storm door. So now when we walk inside the house, we're going to use good carpet, okay? And you're going to start with the mechanicals first when you rehab a house. So you're going to do your electrical, furnace, plumbing. Because I've seen investors buy houses that put the carpet down and then did all that stuff, and it was kind of messy. So you've got to do it in a certain order. So when we're like in the dining room, we are going to use some staging because we're going to put leveler blinds up, and we're going to put some volants for curtain treatment because it needs to have that. And if you're buying the house to resell, you're going to use a flat paint, and you're probably going to two-tone it. And Robin got into great ideas around two-toning, so if you're colorblind like me, take your wife with you to pick out all the colors or whatever, you know. And we would use it was a flat white, or it would be like what she was saying with the antique white or whatever. You're going to go get somebody that knows what they're doing with color combinations and do that. And in the bathrooms, the only treatment we did to the houses was that we would put towels and certain things into the house so that it gave like a look of a completed job. And the monies that we spent, the kitchen, it's critical. Like if you've got old cabinets and stuff, you're going to rip that stuff out, put new cabinets in. The actual cost for a kitchen is probably about $3,500 on a 1,000 square foot house. And I was, she said don't use the Home Depot cabinets and all that stuff, and I was using the Home Depot cabinets and all that stuff. It still looked pretty good, and we still got pretty good sales on it, and we got it out at a good retail price. Because she wanted a better quality cabinets, and she would go in and find wholesalers in the area. I sent an email broadcast out to 4,000 investors, and I got back KSI Kitchens, which is, there is no deals there, there is no wholesale relationship, and it's top dollar stuff. So I haven't.
And you have to put them together piece by piece.
Well, you have to assemble Home Depot stuff, yeah.
They have them all together.
Yeah. So anyway, so then what you've got is you end up with new subfloor, and we did tile because we were reselling the house. If you're doing it to rent it, you might use a commercial grade tile or whatever. If you were doing the house to rent it, you would be using semi-gloss paint that you could clean. It would be a whole together different thing. If you were renting it, you might be using what's called boat show carpet, or a more inexpensive grade, or even a commercial grade of carpet, depending upon where you're located. So, and the carpet I got from a guy named Ron Fraley. He has 16 carpet trucks on the road. He still does carpet. At that time, I was paying $11 a yard. It's probably up to 12 or 13 now. And it is really good carpet. It was the same carpet they were putting in new construction homes in West Bloomfield, Bloomfield Hills, and that's who he provides. He is a handyman type do-it guy. He's like, comes in at 5 in the morning. So if you want his number, it's area code 248-625-0503. And I always talk to him between 5 and 7 a.m. in the morning. And you could call there and speak to his mother, who runs the operation when he isn't there. But you got your best deals through him. He's used to dealing with, he's an investor himself and buys houses. I had one house where he put carpet and I didn't like it. He pulled all the carpet out. The whole time I've been teaching real estate courses, nobody's ever complained about him. He's always been his word. So I don't like to give names out unless they're